it is a perfect kind of April day. You can hear bird song, and I get to work out in the garden for most of the day, and I hope you guys do too. I'm going to be doing some container gardening today, and I'm going to share what my favorite category of plants is to use in container gardens, but that's also my question of the day. I want to know what category of plants is your favorite thing to use in seasonal container gardening. And I'm going to exclude things like I love evergreens, obviously, in containers, my boxwood and arborvitaes and things like that. But beyond that, what is your favorite category of container garden contents that you like to plant seasonally? And I'm going to share mine in just a moment. But first, I wanted to show you how beautiful this small flowered viburnum is, because it has just come out. I'm actually going to cut this evening when it's a little bit cooler, or maybe tomorrow morning, several branches to bring inside, because I think of this as the florist hydrangea, because it is used in so many flower arrangements. And you can see how I've pruned it up from the bottom, but how it has put out a lot of suckers down at the bottom. But right now they're so sweet, I can't bear to cut them out. So I think I'm gonna leave them there. What do you think, Stuart?
Good idea.
Okay, so I'm still in the process of really staging the backyard, deciding what pots I want to put where, and once that is all done to my satisfaction, we will do a real garden tour of when everything is in place. This morning, I can't tell you how many people have come by to take pictures in the front yard, Easter pictures in the front yard. My neighborhood has an egg hunt every year in our park, and there's all sorts of egg hunts going on, and there's all sorts of Easter pictures being taken in my front yard. So I'm going to hide out in my backyard so I can get some work done. Stuart, let's go this way and show what other things are kind of happening, especially as I walk to my destination. I do want to point out the gorgeous Deutzia, which has, this may be my favorite phase of it, you guys. I was telling you about it, but I just love when it puts out these tiny little white buds, because I think part of it's the anticipation of knowing they're going to come into flower. And it just looks so pixelated and beautiful, almost like an impressionist painting. And this is when the contrast and a great companion planting, a great marriage of blooming shrubs, you guys, and that is an oak leaf hydrangea with this beautiful Deutzia. Because look at this, Stuart, look at the underside of this oak leaf hydrangea. It's white, almost kind of a silver, and it looks absolutely beautiful texturally, and from a color palette standpoint. See how it's kind of white edged there, and I love the way that looks in conjunction with the Deutzia. So I digress from what our topic today is. Oh, but let me point out this composition here, because it's starting to put out some color. So this is one of the pelargoniums that I had in the greenhouse. This is a scented geranium, and I'll talk a little bit more about all of these later, but I've got it starting to climb this trellis, and look at these little deers. The new growth that is starting to come out. Someone was asking me they couldn't find the leaf node on their geraniums, and that's where it is, right there. Right there. Okay, now let's go to the back, Stuart, in our container gardens. And let me contrast these small flowered viburnum with the big flower viburnum. How many would you guess is on here, Stuart? I don't even know how to speculate. I guess we could take one branch, count them, and then multiply it times the number of branches. But I was commenting earlier that I think we have more flowers that are smaller, and that's because I think they went ahead and filled out because it got really hot real fast. But now it's kind of cooled down again. Regardless, it is absolutely spectacular when I look out. Stuart, if you don't mind, very slowly, there's somebody standing in the front, very slowly, turning around, and see it's in direct line of my kitchen window. So that's what I see, straight on. It's a perfect axis between my kitchen window and right here, and my beautiful viburnum. Stuart's thinking, would you just get to the topic at hand and quit moving around? Okay, so we are back in the kitchen garden, and we're going to talk about container plantings. Now, back in here, this is my favorite category of plants to put in containers. And that category would be herbs and edibles. You guys know I like a little bit of color, but I like more green in general. But more importantly, I think one of the reasons I don't like color as much is because it just is so short-lived here in Oklahoma. Plants that are green tend to just last longer and look better longer. So I have started over here what I'm thinking of as my herb theater. Now, I talk about it in my book, and Susu, if you don't mind handing me, by the way, you guys sometimes want to know who that other person is that's here, and that is Susu, and she is Stuart's mom, and she comes and helps us offset, but she too does not like to be on camera. But at any rate, on page 112, I talk about how I love, this is one of my examples of romancing the ordinary. By taking something relatively common and doing something to make it seem more special. And that's particularly helpful in Oklahoma when our spectrum of plants we can grow maybe isn't as broad as other places. So in the past, you guys may have seen me talk about my geranium theater or my boxwood theater, and basically all it is just a display of a category of plants in a unique way to elevate their stature, isolate them from the rest of the landscape, and give an importance to them that they may not have otherwise. So right now, and this is still a work in progress, in my herb theater, or in my kind of edible theater, I've got some of the olive trees that I took out of the greenhouse. I have, oh, look at these, Stuart. I don't know if you can probably hear the things he has to navigate to get here. I'm sorry, Stuart. But look at this. This is the pineapple bambina guava from the Southern Living Plant Collection. Look at those flowers. I'm going to get tiny little guava fruits. Look at all the buds. And it has that silvery blue foliage that I so love. And look at that. Look at the center of that. It's just very, very fun. So I've got this. Right now I've got it kind of semi-mulched with some Oklahoma rose rocks. And then I've got lots of parsley because I'm getting ready to make a huge batch of tabbouleh. I'm going to cut this back hard and it will come out again and flush out again for a second harvest very shortly thereafter. Here is another of the pineapple guava with big fat buds on it. It's amazing to me how similar in appearance and in color the pineapple guava from Southern Living is, and comparing it to my olive trees. And the olive trees also were in the greenhouse, and you can see that they're starting to put on new growth. I've cut them back a little bit so they'll fill out. Here's a really good example there, Stuart. And those are getting ready to fill out. Now you'll notice that a lot of my pots have yet to be top dressed or refreshed with gravel, and I'm working on that because I am having a deficit of gravel right now, and I need to get some more. And all of these will get a top dressing and a refresh of gravel. So I've got parsley, I've got mint contained. I'll show you those in a moment. But what I wanted to show you here was my technique for kind of revitalizing a pot of herbs. This is a very low growing creeping thyme, and for about the past 3 years I had a green version on this side and I had another version on this side that turned a beautiful color of purple. Again, this is in my book. It was one of my favorite things in the wintertime, but this has slowly faded out over time. And while it's showing a glimmer of life, not enough to make this pot presentable in the long run. So what I'm gonna do And I have started to do it earlier so you guys wouldn't necessarily hear me grading through this. And by the way, this technique is the same technique you would use if you were dividing perennials. And you just take a sharp spade, in this case I've got my perennial shovel, and I just slit it down the middle. And I'm going to kind of loosen it around the perimeter just a little bit, being careful not to damage the pot because these are great pots and I'll use them again for something else. I've got 2 of them, so I think I probably need something that matches. And then I'm going to lift this ball of thyme out because I want to plant it in here. And I kind of eyeballed the circumference of this to see if it would approximately match this shorter pot. And by the way, somebody was asking me about these kind of short squatty pots and where I get them. And you can find them a number of different places, and sometimes they're called azalea pots. I'm not sure why, but I really love this shape and style of pot. So in here, I've already got some of my potting mix, and this is about 50% old soil and about 50% new potting soil. It's got a little bit of amendment in it, and also some of the additive was a little bit sandy. So this is going to have really good drainage because herbs don't necessarily want a really rich soil. So when I put this in now, I'm getting very good soil to root ball contact. Okay, I'm going to tuck that in. I think I need a little bit of soil there on that side. And you can be rather rough with it. And this is a little tip, I think. You can be rougher with your plants at the first part of the season than you can later in the season. Why? And it's because spring is so much more forgiving in terms of heat and drought and all sorts of things. And it's also when plants are predisposed to put out their most rapid growth. So you can be a little bit more brutal and a little bit rougher because the plants will be able to recover. I have not added any kind of additional plant food to this. I'm just making sure that for this creeping thyme, it's a really good draining soil. Now, you may ask, is this a good culinary thyme? Not necessarily. It is beautiful and I love it. I love the look of tiny leaved plants. I once did a consultation with a woman years ago who said, this is a strange thing, she said, but I have a real fondness for tiny leaved plants. So she loved anything that had a tiny leaved plant and that would kind of creep. And I knew exactly what she meant when she said that. So later, this will get, I'm going to give it a little compression there, especially around the edges. But this will get a good top dressing of gravel, and I'll put it over here in my herb theater, and I will water it in well. Now, in this area, you can see right now that the sunlight is a little bit uneven. In some areas, it's in shade, and in some areas, it's in full sun, and definitely I will kind of move the pots around according to their own dispositions. So for example, the parsley can handle light that's a little bit less intense, as can the mint. It can be a little bit less intense, but certain things really want full sun, like the thyme and the olive trees and the guavas. Now, after I get everything top dressed with gravel, when the gravel arrives, I'm going to put these 2 tiny little olive trees into a pot. I've got a couple of other additions that I'm going to make over here. But I will then give everything a feed. And you may ask what I use. So anything, I don't feed them a lot, but I am going to give them a head start. Now you could use some kind of anything organic. You could use a liquid seaweed fertilizer, but I like this Fox Farm stuff. It's called Grow Big. It's a little bit higher. It's fairly well balanced, but it's a little bit higher on the nitrogen side because these are largely putting out foliage and greenery versus a lot of blooms. But this will get them off to a head start, and I want them to have a good head start going into the heat, because as I have said a million times, there's two seasons here in Oklahoma. There's before the heat and there's after the heat. So now I have this gorgeous like assemblage of containers. All of them, you'll notice, are all in these terracotta pots because I want them all to speak the same language. You'll notice that they are also kind of in layers, which is another kind of signature statement I like to make in my garden. Good garden layering with containers. And I've got a plant stand here. I got it years ago. I'll put an online link to it. I got it years ago. I've got other type of plant stands, and I'm constantly dealing with the layering here, not only for aesthetic purposes, but also for sunlight. So if I see that this olive tree over here isn't getting quite enough sun and it would get more if I elevated it, then I might do that. I have one last container that I want to show you. This one is going to be kind of fun because I am not only thinking about now, I am thinking about the future and what my container plantings will look like down the line. So in here, I've got some fennel, and by the way, I got all of these at the herb festival I went to not too long ago. This is fennel rubra bronze. And I love the deep, intense color and the lacy quality of the fennel. It has an anise flavor, and I don't know how much I'll really cook with it, but I will definitely cut it for flower arrangements. And then I've got a sun coleus in here. These are hopefully what will be part of my plant collection with QVC, and then I've got some sage in here. As this fills out, it will not only look brilliant this summer, but I think it will be wonderful in the fall. And I can already see it in September and October tucked with some maybe little baby pumpkins around it. I've got other herbs that may come to join this kind of culinary party over here. I'm not sure what, Stuart thought that was funny. I'm not sure what will come in here or not, and I'll definitely let you know what I am cooking up with a lot of these herbs. I'll probably place a few like scented geraniums in here, maybe some big pots of marigolds or something to inject just a little bit of color. But for right now, this is a good start. Some of you may have noticed under here that I've got a log. And this was a gift from our kids to my husband, and it is a mushroom log. So it will hopefully sprout mushrooms from the spores that it holds, and I'm leaving it under here because every time then that I water these pots, the water will drip down onto the log, keeping it moist, which is the environment that it wants in order to really be productive. So I think that's just about it, but I want to give you one final tip, and that is, if you'll hand me, Susu, the book on container gardening. So you guys know that my friend Klaus Dalby and I both came out with our books at the same time, both by Cordo Press, Cool Springs Press, and it's a wonderful book on containers in the garden, and he just has all sorts of planting combos and inspiration here that you can use all through the seasons. Wonderful planting tips on bulbs and containers. Look at that. That is simply spectacular as a fall show. So I'll put a link. I would highly recommend you guys get this book because it will give you so much inspiration. My only caveat about this is Klaus gardens in Denmark, and his growing situation and his growing zone is a great departure from what ours is like here in the South. So to the extent that you can, take his ideas in terms of color and composition and textures and pot selection, but you might want to mess with the plant selection a little bit. Try to find doppelgangers, things that look like what he is using, but that can tolerate whatever zone it is that you're growing in. But it's an absolutely wonderful book. In fact, it was so good that I wrote one of the recommendations on the back of it, as he did for mine. So, Klaus, thank you for all you do. I love this book, and I love what you bring to the gardening world. And we'll just kind of end on this beautiful picture. You guys have a great day. Get out in the garden. Well, here you go. Here is my outfit of today. First of all, my accessories. This is one of my favorite tools and favorite garden accessories. It's what I think of as a perennial shovel, and why I like it so much, it's got a small head on it, and so I can get into really tight spaces, and I'm going to use it in today's video. So I wanted to kind of show you that it was one of my favorite things, and if I can find one, I'll try to put a link to one online. My earrings are just beaded hoop earrings. I can't tell you where I got them because I've had them forever. My top I have also had forever, but I love it. I got it at a J. Crew outlet mall a million years ago in Dillon, Colorado, and I don't know how many seasons I have worn this. I think it's been in a number of magazine shoots too. My breeches are Land's End, and I've got them tucked in to, or I should say I've got my boots tucked into them, and my boots are High C, does it? Yeah, High C. And look at the cute little lavender top on them. I love this brand of boots. I have several pair of them, and they asked me again this year to do a promo for them, and I just haven't had time, but I love them so much. This one's on me. So I love High C boots. Stuart, have I forgotten anything? Gloves? Gloves. These are...
I found something.
You found something. Cool job. Cool job gloves. I have several pair of these. I can't remember if I bought them or if someone sent them to me to try, but I can tell you that I do really like them, and frequently you have seen me in them. So not very fancy today. It's garden work after all, but there you go. There is your outfit of the day.